Welcome to the Equinety Podcast, where horse owners just like you share their incredible Equinety stories and how Equinety is changing their horses' lives. Whether you're searching for something to give your performance horse better focus, faster recovery, and more stamina, or in the extreme case where all hope seems lost, give your horse what it needs to help heal at a cellular level, you'll find it here. So jump in on today's episode to hear how Equinety is helping horses worldwide. Now, welcome your host, John Dowdy.
Hello and welcome to this week's Equinety Podcast. We are swinging out into Colorado, and we've got Christy Miller on the call this week. We're going to talk about a mini pony. So, Christy, welcome to the Equinety Podcast.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on, and I believe I came across one of your comments on a Facebook post, and you were talking about your mini that had acquired winter laminitis, which is
Correct.
no fun at all. So before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about, well, first of all, you have been around horses all your life.
Yes.
Yes. And let's talk about how you acquired this little mini, because I found it humorous.
Well, where I live, there is was a feed store, and these people who owned it were into breeding minis. And things weren't going really well with that side of it, so they decided to get out of it. And this little guy was one of their first, and I went to go get feed one day, and they put him on my feed ticket as a free mini ha-ha, which was his name at that time. And of course, I kind of refused at the beginning, and then we decided, well, okay, we decided to take him, and we did change his name to Jack Jack instead of ha-ha. So, and that's been 16 years ago.
Now, did you know ha-ha before? I mean, being there at the feed store all the time, did you know who he was?
I never got to really see him as a little guy. Of course, I was working all the time, but I did know his parents. The dad was like a 29-incher little mini, and the mom was a little bigger. And I did know those, but I never got to see him, as an itty-bitty baby.
Sure.
I got to see him as a yearling. So
yeah. So you're going to the feed store, you get your routine things, and you notice this extra line item as a free ha-ha on your feed bill.
Yes.
That is pretty funny. Well, I think it would be important to note when you're at the feed store, anybody listening in, when you're at the feed store, make sure you check the ticket. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to end up with.
Yes. So although you tried to not take home this free ha-ha mini, they twisted your arm, you brought him home, changed his name to Jack Jack, and that was 16 years ago.
Yes, he was already pretty much broke to a halter and stuff like that. He was a little stallion in that time, and we changed that when he got a little older. Just because he was a little bit of a obnoxious little stallion, so we decided to change that. And ever since then, he's just been an awesome little boy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So what was his demeanor like and personality and everything?
As a little guy, he was very, still very calm and stuff. Of course, there was some of that stallion qualities, and it doesn't help when you have mares. And so we had to kind of deal with that a little bit. And finally, one day, he was kind of picking on one of my mares, and she pulled back and broke her halter. And I told my husband, that's it. It's a done deal. He's got to be a gelding. So After that, he's just, he's very laid back. Nothing gets him riled up. He's very sweet. He's very kind, gentle. Doesn't, he's not afraid of dogs or cats or anything. Not mean to any of those. He's great with the little kids, our grandkids and stuff. So he's just an awesome little boy, and that's why I had to do everything I, could to get him through this problem. So.
Yeah, for sure. Now, do you have any other minis, or is this your only one?
No, I have two other little girls, a little pink and a little black one, and they're from another friend of ours that she contacted me one day, and she was, of course, breeding minis at that time too. And she decided to get out of the breeding of the minis and went into milking Jersey cows. So
oh, all right.
She called me and asked me if I wanted these, and my husband said, sure. So
what's another couple minis? Yes.
I have another couple minutes, and then I have a big horse too. So
yeah.
But never, and I was always, when the minis were kind of big, I thought, I'm never going to be able to afford a mini ever. They're just going to be so expensive. And now I have 3 freebies.
Yes. Yeah. See, it didn't cost you anything to acquire them.
It did not, no.
Yeah. Okay, now let's skip ahead. So the Jack has been doing fine all these years up until this last winter, and he acquired winter laminitis. So did you notice, or how did you first notice that something was going on?
Well, that's correct. He's been awesome. He's never had any issues. He's never colic. He's never had any problems. And I just kind of noticed probably end of December, he just kind of was a little off in his walking. He just seemed like he just wasn't, his normal walking. So I just kind of contacted a friend of ours who is a veterinarian, and she came over and we kind of tested him a little bit. And he was a little sore, and she's also into the natural healing. So she did some acupuncture on him, which seemed to help. And I always kind of knew when he needed another, I think we did it 3 times, he would be laying flat out. And, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I lost my little Jack. And he'd pop back up, and it would take him forever to come down the hill or wherever he was at. So I just knew something was just really wrong, and had contacted my farrier, and we discussed things. And of course, he was not in the area at that time. He was doing snowmobile guides. So I had to kind of wait to get him back here, and he kind of confirmed, what, he was talking about as winter laminitis that he had zipped over to me while he was out there, so I could kind of be up on things. So.
Yeah, so one of the things that he had you do was, or he sent you this article on winter laminitis, and then kind of suggested doing a particular kind of a wrap to increase blood flow. Yeah,
according to this article, that to keep the blood flowing to the area was to wrap, especially in the wintertime, their legs all the way down to the hoof, not, in covering, the whole hoof or anything, but just down to the hoof. So my vet friend had some wraps, and they were 6 feet long. So
yes.
That's a lot of wrapping on a little mini.
A non-mini wrap.
Yeah, So, but since then, I've actually found some 4-footers that I've actually purchased just in case, I ever have an issue again. But 6 foot, that was a challenge. And, luckily he's really a nice boy and stood there the whole time while I was doing it. And if anybody knows about wraps, you have to get them the right way to make the Velcro stick.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a trial and error, but he was so awesome. He just stood there. So
that's great. Now,
we did that.
And how'd that work?
Pretty much, he kept them on. He was really good about it. A couple times I had to wash a couple because it was just kind of a little muddy and mucky because of the snow. But I do believe that helped tremendously, and he thinks that helped also because it just keeps that and if you stuck your finger up there, it was pretty nice and toasty. So according to the article, it was one of the things to do, and keep him blanketed if it was bad. But he had really, really thick fur, so I never did blanket him. I do have a blanket for him, but I did not blanket him because his fur was so thick, and there's always the issue of you don't want to get them used to a blanket because then they rely on a blanket, and
sure.
So we just, but I believe that helped him at the beginning. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So for those tuning in, maybe you're just at this point right here. So we're dealing with a mini pony, acquired winter laminitis. So you did some acupuncture that seemed to help. You did that 3 different times. And then now you've done the full wrap down to the hoof, which is also helping. Did your farrier have any other suggestions to maybe help with the hoof issues, or what else was he saying?
Well, basically, we talked about the whole laminitis, concept of how, the coffin bone can rotate and can be pretty nasty, and ponies are more prone to it. And, of course, he's a mini, so he's still really pretty prone to it. And he was a little bit of a chunky monk, and of course, some of it had to do with his hair. And we talked about metabolic changes, and that that was one of the key things. Is like nothing changed in his life. He's been eating the same hay off the same field for 16 years. He gets hardly any grain. other than, just to get him into the corral at night. So nothing changed in his lifestyle. So that's why, we pegged it as winter laminitis. And I guess it's a common thing. I've never even heard of it. And I'm a vet tech, and in all the years that I've done out calls with the veterinarians that I worked with, never even heard of this, winter laminitis. But obviously a thing.
Yeah.
So basically we just discussed, keeping him comfortable, what could happen, what we need to look for, keeping him trimmed. And at that point I told my farrier, whatever we're doing, we're going to do it to the end because this little guy's awesome. So, and he was on board for it. So we just, kind of went from there. He trimmed him up as much as he could at that point without making him super sore, took the toe off, snubbed it off so he could break over easy. And that helped tremendously at the beginning. And it was, great to see him kind of stride out a little bit more at that point when he took the toe off. So
sure. And did he have any other suggestions for supplements or anything like that? And where I'm going with that is how did you end up purchasing Equinety or find Equinety to begin with? Were you just kind of looking around for different things, or how'd that all come to be?
Well, we never did talk about any type of supplements, so there's really nothing out there, that can, other than relieving pain. And I had on hand the absorbing buteless product, just because if you use bute too much, it can, cause other health problems and stuff, and
Sure.
and then being little guys and stuff. So he was on bute for a little bit, probably maybe 2 weeks at the most, just to kind of get him through it. And then I just kind of weaned him off of it a little bit. And so he, at that point when I took a photo of it, of this little guy walking and sent it to my farrier, he was on absolutely nothing at that point. He wasn't on any bute and anything, which my farrier was pretty astonished at. But as far as finding the product, I wasn't looking for anything. Absolutely, like I said, I'm a vet tech. And in all the years, basically for laminitis, of course, you got to keep your hoof in good shape and keep him comfortable. There's no miracle, ta-da, we're done with laminitis type,
Right.
Drug.
Sure.
So, I've seen a few of them in my lifetime. I've been, like I said, a vet tech for 34 plus years and have not seen, anything that's, comfortable and making sure the hoof is in good health. So, and your farrier on deck. But I wasn't looking at all. It just happened to pop up on my Facebook, and there's this picture of a hoof, I'm talking about laminitis, and it's like, okay, well, let's read what it says. And I was impressed about, how it took care of everything at a cellular level. And I thought, well, why not? So
Yeah.
I just started seeing where I could find this, product. And I think I can't even remember if I got it off Amazon at the first part, or I don't know where I got it at the beginning. And I bought 2 little jars, and I thought, okay, well, seems to be doing pretty good. So probably my best bet is to do it the big jar.
Awesome.
But I wasn't actively looking for anything, nothing.
Yep.
I just know that this is what we had to do. And I thought, well, what the heck? So here I am.
Yeah. So you started this back in around mid-March. So you've been on it now, or he's been on it about 3 months. What things have you noticed since you've been using the product? And we're talking specifically about the Equinety Horse Excel, which is 100% pure aminos. So,
right.
Yeah. So what have you noticed?
Well, I think actually I started probably maybe February with my first little jar. And then I bought the big tub in March. So, and he's still on the big tub. I think he just has his overall, well-being with this whole problem is just 100% better. I mean, he's happy. Of course, he's not happy about not being fed as such, but he's out playing. Yeah, exactly. He's out running with his little girly friend, and he's part of the herd again. Before, when he was having this problem, they would just go off and leave him, and he just couldn't keep up. And I felt sorry for him, so I kept him in the corral, and of course that didn't make him any happier either, because his friends were still gone, and he tried to go out there, and he just couldn't go, and so he's back to running with his girly friends and being a little pony, and his whole demeanor with the whole thing, I could just kind of tell it in his eyes. He just,
Sure.
He didn't feel good.
Yeah.
I noticed also at one point, and I don't, because we had talked to my farrier and I talked about being in maybe a metabolic change too, that one time, I don't know if somebody stepped on his tail or what and pulled a big old chunk out. So it was really kind of thin and wispy. And I thought, oh, you're going to really suffer this winter or the summer when you ain't got no tail. And since he's been on this product, his tail is full again and it's beautiful, so I think that's helped. Maybe I'm wrong, but he has a really nice full tail.
Yeah. We've actually heard that quite a bit.
Yeah. And actually, my other two mini girls have really super long manes. I mean, they're almost to the knees and stuff and really long forelocks. And his has always been kind of short, but I noticed that it's longer than it has been. So
yeah,
for the flies, it's not a good thing. But I think overall, his whole body looks, his coat looks different.
Yeah.
So I think it's really helped him a lot all over.
Sure. Yeah, and specifically going back to the hooves, being a vet tech, you've seen a lot of different things through the years.
Oh yes.
Do you? Yeah, we hear a lot as well. But do you personally feel that this has just helped speed up the healing process or the repair process overall?
Oh yes, I would have to say tremendously.
Mm-hmm. I've
seen, horses that go through this. They're on bute and different types of pain relievers for months and months and months, and some of them never even come out of it. Some of them aren't, usable horses anymore because of that fact. And, they just can't walk or, and horse owners get frustrated with that because, here we're feeding a horse that we can't use. And so they kind of give up on them and they don't get the stuff that they need, which is kind of sad. I've seen a lot of that.
Sure.
And this wasn't going to happen to Jack. So I wasn't ready to put him in the ground. So
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think this stuff, and like I said, I think it was December, and I started on this on I'm pretty sure it's probably February, and here we are, June, and he's, it's been a month with actual thinking, gosh, if I got him through it,
Yeah, and now he's out there running around like a wild child and chasing his girls.
Yeah. Yeah, he's chasing his girl, and he's a happy little boy, and he's back to his normal sweet self. So
that's funny. Well,
I would have to say that, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, maybe you've just learned about the Equinety products. We actually have two now, but one we're talking specifically about here is the Equinety Horse Excel, which is 100% pure amino acids. There's no fillers, no sugars, no starches, and there's no loading dose. Serving size is 5.2 grams, which is about a rounded teaspoon equivalent. And what's interesting is, although we had some conversations kind of pre the call, but the reason why this product is so unique is the amino acids are specifically formulated to target the pituitary gland, which is roughly the same size in a mini pony and a giraffe. So they all get the same dose, which is the one scoop. And what's really going on in the body is when the pituitary is stimulated, it releases the necessary hormones, which then go throughout the body for repair. So since we're giving the horse the product and the horse is releasing its own hormones, it's that horse's body that's sending the hormones to the problem areas. So in this case, not only did it help with the faster repair when it comes to the overall hooves and the laminitis, but you also notice a difference in the coat, the fuller and growing faster mane and tail. Now, with all of that being said, when was the last time your farrier was out, and what has he noticed since you've been on product, or since Jack's been on product now for 3 months?
My farrier was out about 2 weeks ago. He just happened to be in the area fixing a new shoe for a friend of ours, and I told him to send him on over because I felt that he was a little long. And so he came over and he, confirmed, and what he took off was astonishing of what he was, trimming off, which was kind of, and I knew he was long. And so he trimmed him up on the front and stuff, and got more off than I was anticipating, which, he made him look normal versus, that little elfish looking curl to the feet. And when he got to the back foot, because he was affected by it on all four, he had his helper hold him while I looked around the back, and he says, he said, I just went through, he handed me the part of the hoof, and it was quite a chunk that he took off. He says, see, here's the old blood. And he says, look, we're down to healthy hoof. And he says, this is just amazing. He says, it takes a long time to get to that point. And he says, I'm amazed. And we talked about the product again. He says, well, I'm going to research it. And he says, I'm going to recommend it to some of my clients. And I said, well, call me. Have them call me. Because I'm 100% on board with this. Because, and when we let him loose, he was back to looking like a normal horse before this all happened. He didn't have the boxy hoof, and he didn't have, the little curl like an elf and stuff. And so he was just astonished. And when he moved out, of course, his friends were up on the hill, and he wasn't happy that he was left behind. So when we let him go, he took off running up the hill. So he just couldn't believe it. So.
Oh, man. That is an awesome story. Wow.
Yeah.
Like you said there, the recovery time was pretty phenomenal. Now, one thing I want to point out here before we wrap up, I tell people all the time, this product is not a miracle supplement. You could have the best farrier on the planet standing in front of your horse, but if there's nothing to work with, it's kind of difficult for everybody. So this product, the Equinety Horse Excel, is just a fantastic complement to anything that you're doing for your horse, or, if you're adding it to the things to really help your horse, it's going to help give their farrier a lot more to work with in a shorter amount of time in this particular case. So it's, I tell people it's not a miracle supplement, but it sure has done some miraculous things. So, and I think the repair process in this case is pretty astonishing, about 4 months, or thereabout, 5 months. So awesome. Well, Christy Miller out of Colorado, I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story here on the Equinety Podcast.
Thank you. You're welcome.
That's all for this episode of the Equinety Podcast. For more information on purchasing Equinety, be sure to visit our website at teamequinety.com, where you'll also find product information as well as more testimonials on how others have seen amazing results by implementing Equinety into their horse's supplement regime. We'll have more stories on how Equinety is helping horses worldwide right here on a future episode of the Equinety Podcast.